Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our training about automated setup and tools for GA4. So we're here today with myself, Gauthier. I'm a measurement specialist, and I'm working at Google for 5 years now, and I specialize in tagging, GA4, and privacy. And I'm here today with Anna.
Hi, everyone. My name is Anna. I'm measurement specialist, measurement solutions consultant, also working with GA, GA360, and privacy is definitely a big topic today. And well, obviously GA4 is the topic of our live stream today. I'm at Google for around 6 years, and yeah, looking forward for the session.
Thank you, Anna. So today at the agenda, we have multiple things. So first, we will present you how to upgrade in an easy way to GA4. And then we'll give you a demo of what you can find in your GA4 account, what's new compared to Universal Analytics. And we will even dive a bit deeper with the Analysis Hub, which is a new feature there. And finally, we will talk about some features that have been launched recently before we move on to the last part where we will answer your questions. So before we start all of that, just a quick recap about GA4. So as you may be aware of, so GA4 now is the new version of Google Analytics that will allow you to basically merge your app and web data to have a holistic view of your user's journey across those platforms. And the way we do it, basically, we use three signals for our cross-device measurement. So we use the user ID, the Google signals, and the device ID. And we'll show you how all of this is showing in your reports. And now I will let Anna show you how we can migrate to GA4 the easy way.
Sounds good, yeah. So, probably the first question is how you actually get started, how you get upgraded to GA4. And there are different flows of how you can do that. You can start with analytics, you can start with Firebase. I would say that there is one big difference, I wouldn't say big difference, but still, with both analytics and Firebase, you can either just upgrade your existing property, you can create a new property and a new Firebase project. But please note that if you start from analytics, you can't create a new property and link it to existing Firebase project. There is a workaround for that, which we will look at in the next few slides. But another one thing to remember here is that you can link only one Firebase project to one GA4 property. So it's not many-to-many connection, it's one-to-one. Let's move to the next slide and actually have a look what kind of tools do we have to make it easier for you to migrate. So if you start with analytics, you can always see something called GA Setup Assistant under your admin console, under the property column. And that would basically allow you to do two actions. First, you can create a new GA4 property using the wizard, or you can connect an existing GA4 property. And yeah, let's go to the next slide and see what can wizard do. So the wizard will allow you to, first of all, create a GA4 property in an automated way and enable web streams based on your Universal Analytics property. So it will inherit things and events that you're already sending to your Universal Analytics property and translate them into sort of the language that GA4 will understand. It will also allow you to activate enhanced measurement, and we will talk about what do we mean by enhanced measurement. And at the last point, it will allow you to enable data collection. Speaking about data collection, so the easiest way to set it up would be to leverage connected site tags option. Please note that this will work only if you are using gtag.js for your Universal Analytics and your gtag.js snippet is what we call controlled by your Universal Analytics. So here in the code snippet, you can see that in the upper line, we see Universal Analytics UA. So please know that this should be like that. Otherwise, you won't be able to leverage connected site tags. And then with connected site tags, it's actually a user interface feature, which would allow you to specify which GA property or GA4 property should be connected to your Universal Analytics, and it will help you to send the events and just to inherit all the events from Universal Analytics and send them to GA4. Let's go to the next slide. Yeah. So another useful thing, like once you create your GA4 property, is the setup assistant. And again, this is a feature that will appear on the property column in admin section. And it will allow you to further customize and modify your GA4 property and also share some settings from Universal Analytics property. And like in terms of those sections, you will have a collection section, like anything around data collection, things like tag installation, some custom events management, enhanced measurement, user ID feature. Then you have property settings. And by property settings, we would mean activating Google signals. Linking, well, with linking, I guess it's easy. So it's linking to Google Ads accounts. At this point of time, we don't yet have GMP integration for GA4, but this is something that we have in the roadmap. Then you can inherit audiences, conversions, and user management from your Universal Analytics. Yeah. So the next step would be actually creating data streams to start the data collection. To create app data stream, you would need to have Firebase SDK in your apps. You would need to register your apps with Firebase. If you do that from Universal Analytics, if you do that from Analytics overall, you can actually only create a new stream or a new Firebase project. So you can't really link an existing one from here, but you can actually just leave your newly created GA4 property empty or just create a web stream. And then you can continue from the Firebase user interface. And if you have already an existing Firebase project, you can actually link it to a newly created GA4 property. Let's move to the next slide. Yeah, and that will show us how we can create also a web data stream. So with web data stream, you need to specify your website URL, and it will allow you to enable enhanced measurement functionalities. So a set of events that can be collected automatically with just toggle on and toggle off feature in the user interface. It will also show you some additional tag settings that would be available for you after creation, and those would be things like referral exclusion, cross-domain measurement, and again, like we actually will talk about these features a bit later today in the live stream. Yeah. So in terms of the enhanced measurement events, you'll see a list of various options that are available for you. We have page views, and page views is an automated event, and you can't really toggle it off completely. But you can toggle on and off things like scrolls, outbound clicks, view engagement, file downloads. So if you don't want any of those events, you can actually toggle them off and they won't be collected. If you do have them on, then those events will be collected automatically just with, you don't really need to modify your tag to collect them. And last but not least, to enable data collection for web, you would need to have either gtalk.js or GTM. So something that we called Global Site Tag, or OGT, as you might have heard about that. We won't talk much today about dual tagging in detail, but yeah, like overall, that would be the step for you to start the data collection. And if you just install the basic tag, then that would allow you already to collect automated events and the events coming from enhanced measurement. So that was all about the starting from analytics. As for starting from Firebase, like imagine you already have your Firebase project and you want to start using GA4 properties. What you would need to do is enable Google Analytics integration, like shown on this slide. And then if you go to the next slide, you can see that you will have two options. So by default, the tool will automatically create you a new property. However, if you press on a pencil button, you can select an existing one instead. So instead of creating a new one, if you already have one created, for instance, like as we discussed in the previous scenario, you can leave it blank without your app stream, and that would be the moment when you can actually link it to the existing one. And yeah, here's how you can also check which account is already linked. So you will always see the analytics account and the particular property that is linked to your Firebase account. Just again, remember, you can't really link two, and there is always one-to-one connection for Firebase and GA4. And now passing it over to Gautier.
Thank you, Anna. So now we'll see together actually what it looks like in the UI. So Anna presented you some feature. We'll come back to that. And here it is. So not very impressive for now, but we'll start here with the admin part of the UI, where you can see one of the main difference with the Universal Analytics. It's those streams here. So when you have multiple streams, if you imported an app stream, you would see it here, iOS or Android. Unfortunately, we don't have one for the demo, and you would see a web stream, and you would see a recap here, right? So, and I presented you some features, for example, about the events that are automatically collected, and this is where you would see them. Sorry, if I go to another stream here, and you would be able to toggle on and off those features. Also, if you want to create some events, you can do it by clicking here, modify and create events. And this will allow you to modify events. For example, if you want to change the name of an event, the way it will appear in your report, to have some consistency between your app and web events, for example, you can do it here in the modify event. All right. Also, something else that you would be interested in those reports would be the default reporting identity, in case you want to use user ID or not. So you can simply switch from an option to another. Okay, so if you use by device only, of course, user ID won't be used. But if you use the user ID and device, so first, in order to match users, the user ID will be used first, and then in case the user ID is not available, the device ID will be used. Okay, we took so then let's check the reports and what you have there in this interface. So this is the home and what it looks like for your reports, and let's check summary. So yeah, here you have all the reports that you have access to. Let's start with the user acquisition. So you would see here. Sorry for that. I will show you a report where there are actually data to show, so you can have a better overview of what it looks like. So this is what the report looks like, and we quite often have questions about having a view of apps and web separately. So it is something you can do now by adding a comparison here, and you would select a dimension that would be the platform. And then you select a dimension. So if you have more stream, of course you can choose more. And the cool thing about this interface here, so it will apply here, but it will also apply to all the other reports that you have. So even in the events report here, for example, so it sticks here. So it's not like it would happen in Universal Analytics, where you would need to actually add dimensions and comparison all the time. Okay. So speaking of the events, since we're here, I will now show you how you can actually create events. So we've seen a bit earlier that some events are automatically collected, but there are some of them, of course, that you can create. Right. So if we go here, yeah. So here you can see all the events that are now collected, with all the counts, the changes, and so on and so on. And you can simply create or modify some. And sorry, I'll have to switch again and show you what it looks like when you create events. But yeah, you can create an event, and you have this window here, and you can create one, you name it where you want it, and then you choose a source and so on. And if you want to modify it, it will be roughly the same window. If you choose to modify it from this interface and not from the admin when we saw it, and it will open the same window, and you will be able to modify the event from there as well. All right. Now there are also if you then want to create some goals, this time it's extremely easy. The only thing you need to do is basically to change the switch here, mark as conversion. And you can see here, for example, here this event, the begin checkout, is marked as a conversion. So it's the equivalent of a goal. And this is the only thing you need to do to measure your conversions in GA4. Now, about the audiences, same thing. You can create audiences, and I will have to switch again. Sorry for that. To show you how you can create audiences. There are multiple options. So there are some audience that are predefined with some templates, so you can use that. Or there are some more templates again if you want to use some other segments like the demographics, technology, and so on. And once you collect enough data, and we will talk about it a bit more in details with the new features later in the presentation, there are also some predictive audiences that can that will be available at the third option. All right. And now we'll move on to the next session with Anna, which is the Analysis Hub.
Thanks a lot, Gauthier. So the Analysis Hub is definitely a new thing that is available for you in GA4. And first of all, let me show you the template gallery. So like under Analysis Hub, you can find the template gallery, and like obviously you can create a new one, but there are a few templates that are available for you here. So you can select from exploration, funnel, path analysis, to something like segment overlap or cohort or user lifetime analysis. There are some also use cases that you can dive in, or there can be different sets of suggested reports for different industries. And at this point of time, we do have ones for e-commerce and gaming. Let's now have a closer look to different templates that are available for you. And first, let's see what is available for you with the exploration. Basically, what exploration type of report or type of analysis would allow you is getting customized representation or visualization of your own metric and dimension. So you can slice and dice data however you would want to do that. You select, or you can also apply some segments. In this section, specify the data frame that you would like to analyze. Select dimensions, like you can add the new ones here. And once you already have a dimension in this list, you can simply drag and drop it in the rows. Same about metrics. Like if you would want to include any metrics, then you can drag them from here and drop them to the values. Like at this point of time, we're analyzing active users and event counts. But if you would want to include transactions, for instance, as well, you can also drag them here. So yeah, basically here you have rows, here you have columns. Here's how you can drag and drop things. What also is good about exploration, that it shows you a bit of visualization in terms of the data. Like it's not just the numbers that you see here, but also kind of a line of like whether you have more users or like more event counts in certain country, like us here. The other type of analysis that I wanted to show is the segment overlap. And basically, it is a band style diagram that shows you, and it can show you the overlap of different user segments. It's pretty useful and like pretty good visualization. For instance, here we have mobile traffic, direct traffic, and also paid traffic. So it's not necessarily just like 3 different styles, but like you can see different types of segments. And yeah, it can help you answer the questions. Something like whether your campaign has been good. Like if you had a bad traffic for mobile specifically, let's say, then you can see like how many users there were that would fit into both buckets. Or like, let's say, if you would like to see what is the overlap between your mobile users and your desktop users, that can make you a good decision whether you need to run, let's say, an app-specific campaign or something like that. Another style of the analysis that is available for you is the path analysis. This is something that will show you basically it will illustrate the event stream and can help you answer the type of questions as like, so for instance, here we start with the page view and like what happens actually with the page view? Like what is usually the first page that users end up? Like what do they do afterwards? If we analyze it from the app perspective, let's say the starting point could be the app download, and then it can dive into what do users actually do after they download your app. That can help you to see like where the drop off is happening. Like, is there a particular page where users will drop off, and so on. The other style of reports that we have, or like analysis, is the funnel. Like we have custom funnels, and again, like you can specify your steps. Like it can be anything. Like let's say here in the example we have the purchase funnel or like the checkout behavior. But yeah, depending on the use case, it can be something else as well. So you can specify the steps here based on your events, and this is a pretty powerful tool to analyze your behavior flow and understand like whether the drop off is coming, like what should you actually action on a particular step, like maybe a particular page needs some further analysis or some improvements. And then you can also break down the steps by like a certain dimension. For instance, here we have it broken down into device category. The other style of analysis that you can run is the cohort analysis. And this is something that can help you analyze user retention based on the acquisition time. So if you run a certain campaign on a particular date, then you can see whether the users are staying or like whether the users are dropping off afterwards on the first or second week. Or let's say if your users were acquired in a very particular week and then you run a campaign for them in another week, then you can see whether actually there is a bump in the users' visits to your website. That was all about the Analysis Hub. Let's get back to the slides and have a closer look into the recently launched features. And the first one that we wanted to share is the predictive audiences. And this is something that Gauthier mentioned already, but in a nutshell, we have machine learning capabilities that you can leverage with your audiences. And those would be things like there will be a set of different suggested audiences for you. You will see, like if you are eligible, you will see it next to templates in your audience creation funnel. Those would be things like the likely to churn users, likely to purchase users, and so on. And if you move to the next slide, we can have a look of actually what needs to be done to make it work for you and for you to be eligible. So first of all, you need to make sure that you are collecting your purchase, or like if we also talk about in-app purchase events, because that would be the base for the machine learning capabilities of predictive audiences. And then you need to meet a specific threshold of 1K transactions over the 30 days. And that would be the base for model to start actually generating. And once you have it, you will be able to get those audiences and select them. Another cool feature that is out there is the audience triggers, which allows you to create new events based on any condition or criteria that already is there in your audience builder tool. And just to give you a few examples, it can be like, I don't know, you might want to trigger a conversion event when a user would enter your audience, like loyal users audience, or a specific lifetime value category of users. Potentially, you would want to trigger an event when the user would cross a specific threshold of a particular either lifetime value, or maybe if we talk about anything else, like the probability of the purchasing of a particular product on your site and so on. So this can be also done. It works in a similar way, like you remember goals in Universal Analytics, but yeah, here you would just create a conversion event instead. You can also use some custom criteria if you would like, and just create some own logic. Again, in terms of how it works, you need to create an audience following the usual audience creation flow, and then you can click on create new audience trigger on the right. So like in your audience creation flow, you will just have this new option, and you need to specify the event names. And then later, optionally, if you would like, you can also mark those events as conversions. Another cool feature that Gautier already showed lightly, it was the event modification. So now in GA4, it's not necessarily just about creating events and making sure that you capture them in your properties, but you can actually modify the way events end up on your properties and the way they are reported, even though in the tag, like the name of the event might be different. So it allows you to rename events and standardize them, or like unify your reporting across different properties and across different data streams. For instance, just to give an example, like with Firebase SDK, let's say we used to have a different name for purchase events. It used to be called e-commerce purchase. Now for GA4 to read it properly, it needs to be called purchase. So with event modification, for instance, you can actually specify that if the event is called, if actually there might be a chance that somehow in certain pages, like it was not fixed and the event name is still e-commerce purchase, it needs to be modified to purchase. It helps you also to fix some typos if there are some typos in your tags, or just fine tune some event parameters. So it's not necessarily just about event names, but like event name is also a parameter, but like it can be any other custom parameter as well. Another thing that I think you might have heard about as well, that was a feature to be launched, YouTube Engage View through conversions. Now it is live, so now it is available for you in GA4 properties. What is YouTube Engage View through conversion? It is an indicator that the user has watched your YouTube video for at least 10 seconds, and they also have converted on your website within 3 days after viewing this video. This feature will be available for you in a set of reports, so it won't be available in all of the reports, obviously, but in all the reports where ad network type is available as a dimension, you will be able to see YouTube Engage View through conversions. Just to give a few examples of these reports, conversion detail report will have it, Google Ads campaigns, user acquisition. You will be able to find it there. There are also a few things like of what needs to be done. Yeah, let's move to the next slide with how it works. Yeah, so basically 2 steps needs to be done for you to be able to leverage this feature. You need to link your property to your Google Ads account so that your YouTube web Engage View conversions are available in your reports. And then as the second step, you need to activate Google Signals. BigQuery linking is also there, and probably a big difference between GA360 and GA4 is that for the first time, BigQuery linking is available for all GA4 users to access raw and unsampled data. So like it's not a 360 feature anymore. Like there will be some differences between enterprise version and the free version, but overall BigQuery linking is available for you there. You will also have different ways of like how you can see data. Similar to GA360, you will be able to see daily tables and streaming tables, or like real-time tables. Yeah, let's get to the next slide. And yeah, in terms of the GA4 schema, it has been refreshed, obviously. Now it's matching Firebase schema. We do have a link, so like if you would like, you can always familiarize yourself with what would be the data structure for GA4. And similar to GA360, within each dataset, you will have a table imported. And the format would be events and the year, month, and day for the tables. How to enable BigQuery Expert? Again, pretty similar to what you might have been used in GA360. You need to create Google APIs console project first of all and enable BigQuery for it. Also prepare your project for BigQuery Expert in the sense of selecting where the data will be stored and so on. Then you need to go to your GA4 user interface, and under admin section, you will find BigQuery linking, and you just need to click link. And there you would later need to specify data streams that you would like to export and choose your BigQuery project as destination. So the difference between what we used to have in GA360 and GA4 is that now we don't really specify a view that has to be sent. It's more about specifying data streams that would be exported. And yeah, passing it over to Gautier then.
Thank you, Anna. And yeah, we have some other cool features coming with GA4. So there's the data import. So you were able to import data with GA360 or GA before. It is something that you can do now with GA4 as well. So it's actually extremely similar to what you could do before. So you can either do it manually with the CSV or you can do it automatically. And yeah, obviously you have some limits. So the total size cannot exceed 10 gigabytes, the data source 1 gigabyte, and so on. And the two ways that you can use to import your data is so the processing time or the query time, which is also something that was there already in GA360. In terms of tagging settings, so we talked about it before as well, but you have a lot of options that you can now use in terms of tagging options, and we will see some of them, such as, for example, the cross-domain measurement. So cross-domain measurement works the same way it used to work, and especially if you had a GTAG configuration before, this will work with your GA4 setup. So this is actually another reason. If you are not using GTAG yet for your GA property, this is something that you can think of here. So the way we recommend to do it, we recommend you to do it via your admin section in the configure your domains part of this section. And there's also this that has been added. So if you want to basically exclude some referrals from your reports, now you can use this again in the admin section to exclude some referrals, to list the one that you don't want to see. And that's pretty much it. And we can move on to the questions, to the live questions, or to the pre-selected questions that we received.
All right, we actually have quite a lot of questions. And probably good that now we have half an hour for bound, so hopefully we will be able to go through most of the questions that you have been raising. I can start with the first one from Robert. So there were two questions coming from him. The first one is, how does GA4 prepare us going forwards for a potential cookieless future? And the second one is, when is GA3 likely to be discontinued? So in terms of the potential cookieless future and like anything future-proofing your measurement, I'd say that the first and probably the most important bit is actually making sure that your tagging is durable. So now with all the changes that have been announced recently, it makes sense, first of all, to rely on first-party cookies and like make sure that you are using either gtag.js or GTM as your tagging, so that you actually capture first-party cookies instead of third-party. We all know that, like, who knows what will happen in the future, and there are different talks. We also have a lot of features that will be relying on modeling, and if you go with the best practice of what we have, and things like consent mode, for instance, as a product, for GA4 integration, it will allow you to rely on modeling. So the modeling part of consent mode for GA, it won't be available for GA360, but it will be available in the future for GA4. So things like that, like, stay tuned in terms of new announcements, and make sure that you're just up to date with all the implementations, like you're following the best practices. And for the second question, in regards to the discontinuation of GA3 or like GA360, we of course don't have an exact date, but this is not something that happens in the nearest future, so you still have some time. Hard to say the exact date, but like we would say that you definitely have around 2 or 3 years. And of course, there will be announcements about that. So it definitely won't be coming out of sudden.
Great. And actually, we even have some more questions from Robert. Thank you for that. So asking also, is there a best practice approach to moving GA3 events to GA4? Well, actually, we work on that quite often with clients, because this is the part that requires quite some work actually for most of them. So you will basically have to replicate what you have, unless so there are some events that can be automatically done with the wizard tool that we showed earlier in the presentation. But if you have some custom events that you want to see in GA4 as well, you will need to replicate what you had in GA3. So this can be done with GTM if you are a GTM user, and you'll see that's actually that will require some work there for the replication.
Good. So yeah, another question that we have is coming from Nandan. The question is, what is the equivalent dimension of client ID in GA4? In Universal Analytics, we have client ID and report can be checked in Audience Explorer report and can see every single client ID. What can I find similar to GA4? So GA4 also has client ID. So client ID is still available, and like it's one of we have user IDs, we have client IDs coming from the cookies. So we still rely on them. Actually, this is something that we probably better double check and maybe follow up later in a sense that maybe in regards to Analysis Hub. I believe that there might be some exploration available in the Analysis Hub. However, I believe that we don't really have a similar report in the set of default reports for user exploration. Another thing is that you can leverage BigQuery. So with BigQuery, you can also go deeper into the user analysis.
Great. So we also had some questions around around e-commerce and e-commerce implementation, such as should GA4 automatically pick up on previous e-commerce implementation for purchases? So that's actually another quite common question that we have from our retail clients. So if you check our documentation, you'll see that actually the schema for e-commerce for GA4 is a bit different from the schema for GA360 or Universal Analytics. So GA4 can actually read the schema, the old schema from GA360, but the opposite is not true. So if you plan on working on the migration there, you will just need to keep in mind that if you change your data layers to only have the information that are available for GA4, your report in GA will not be able to read those information anymore. Okay, so what we would recommend more at the moment would be, so if you want to still analyze everything in GA360, you can just keep the schema for the moment, or you can try to have both. But we wouldn't recommend yet, as long as you're not using GA4 as your source of truth, sorry, as long as you're not using GA4 for that, don't remove your old e-commerce schema from your data layers.
All right. One more question that we have from Birger, and sorry if I pronounce the name incorrectly. How to handle page view events for single page applications? When I add the page view event myself in GTM, I see the event is sent twice. So the interesting bit about page view events in GA4, well, of course, they are fully automated. But in the enhanced measurement section, there is also advanced settings for page views. And there you can see that there are two types of page views that are being captured. First one is captured based on the page load. And the second one is actually a virtual page view, so something connected to single page applications, like it is based on a history change. And the virtual page view, the one that is based on history change, is the one you can actually switch off. So it is automatically collected by default, but this is customizable. And in your web stream settings, if you go to enhanced measurement, you can untick the box for virtual page views. As for GTM, and if you actually capture something manually, and you capture the page view manually for GA4 as well. So with GA4, even for page load events, it is technically possible to disable it, but via tagging. We don't really recommend, we suggest always that you rely on the automatic one, but technically it is possible to disable page view collection with your tag. But yeah, this is probably related more to page load events. If we speak just about virtual page views for single page applications, then yeah, it's just an unticking the box exercise in the settings. And I probably can also take another one question from Birger. there is a one-to-one connection. Does that mean I can't send GA4 data to a property for only app and also to another property for app plus web together? So yes, this is correct. Your Firebase project can be connected to only one GA4 property. Later in the GA4 property, if you actually would prefer to analyze your app data separately from your web data, you can leverage reporting filters. So you can add a comparison, and like usually there is always add comparison on the top of the reports, and there you can specify an exact stream ID, or you can specify a platform. And let's say if you would want to analyze multiple app streams together, but not web stream, then you can specify them, just selecting and filtering by platform. Let's see what we have. There is one question about how to start the prediction function. If you already have a lot of events or like purchase events, but prediction function is not available for you. So this is something that you can't really like. It's not something that you can turn on and off. It is always based on the data that you have in the account. There might be a chance that like you're still not meeting the threshold, but like if you feel that you're collecting a lot of purchase events already and they are meeting the threshold, like for 30 days and so on, it might make sense for you to reach out to our GA360 support team to see like whether there are any issues, because there might be that, well, maybe you have a lot of purchase events, but maybe they were not aggregated through the last 30 days, for instance, and that's why you're still not within the threshold or something like that. Or maybe like those events were like probably like you have a lot of events for 60 days, but not for the last 30, something like that. Question from Manpreet. If I understand correctly, you mentioned that using the setup assistant allows you to use your existing UA property as a web stream in GA4, and UA events are then mapped into GA4 in new event structure. Is this correct? If so, what logic translates the Universal Analytics events to GA4 events, and is there a way to manually adjust it? Yes, like it depends on the setup, of course. If you leverage your connected site tags, then you have less visibility, like less impact on how you can modify it, but there are multiple ways of how you can actually set things up. Yeah, like the logic behind translating events from Universal Analytics into GA4, usually if we take a typical event in Universal Analytics, you have category, action, value, and label. And in GA4, that would mean that your action is your event name, and then your category becomes your first parameter that is being passed together with your event. And well, obviously value and label, if they are present, they can also be like the third and the second and the third parameter, but like as they're optional, they might not be there, of course. So that would be the logic behind just purely translating. In terms of impacting that, if you're using gdoc.js, then you can actually specify where a particular event is being sent. So let's say if there are some events in Universal Analytics that you don't want to have in GA4, you can actually specify them to be sent just to your Universal Analytics properties and not to GA4. So there are some ways of customization. It just depends like what actual approach you're taking. But yeah, with gdoc.js, you can also modify it. And then you can also leverage modify events. So even if you capture something, then with modify events, you can specify a specific condition that can modify your event in the reporting. So there is a question from Lewis in regards to the events naming change. So the event notification should be a going forward change. Like the question was, do modifications to events naming change historical values or just going forward? And yeah, once you create a new modification, that's a going forward change. Very few questions around not seeing particular dimensions, either in the analysis hub, like not all dimensions are available. And let's say in some of the default reports, some dimensions are not available, secondary ones. So in most cases, like especially for the default reports, indeed, some of the dimensions might not be available for you, but in most cases, they will be available for you in the analysis hub. As for user ID in the analysis hub, like that is, it is available in BigQuery, but not in the analysis hub. We probably should better follow up through your, yeah, we probably should better follow up later. Like it might be expected, but yeah, better double check actually. It is definitely a dimension that is available in the schema for BigQuery, but similar probably to GA360, like we don't always have a 100% parity between what is available for you in BigQuery and what is available in the user interface. So some dimensions indeed might not be available. There is a question from Kahan. What is the difference between user properties sent directly in the tag settings and the custom dimensions declared to the user property in GA? So the difference is that, like, if you set a user property on your configuration tag, then this is something that is applied to all of the events that are sent further on. If you specify a user property to a specific event, then it goes along with a specific event. So that would be the difference mainly. Also, if we skip some questions, that might mean that we will follow up through the POC with Google. So we might just not answer everything right now, but yeah, we would suggest that you reach out to your POCs at Google, and definitely we can help forward all the answers later on. There is a question around guidelines, how to move step-by-step configuration from Universal Analytics to GA4. And like we do have obviously helps and articles that would explain all the basics of like how you set up your GA4. But probably the easiest way, like if you want to have something like step by step and something easier, then yeah, I would say that it's good. It's a good idea to leverage setup assistant, because yeah, that would be more or less like a step by step thing of like what you can inherit from your universal analytics in GA4. Another question from Thomas in regards to the naming convention for events. Is it still a must to use lowercase letters and underscores for event names? I would say that the lowercase letters, I think it would be just easier for you to handle it. The main idea behind naming convention, then the main idea behind naming convention is that you should make it similar. So like if you pass an event in your app environment, and you have a similar event in your web environment, then you should actually match the naming convention. And with lowercase, I believe that it's easier to maintain it and make sure that like you actually pass it all aligned across different environments. For the lowest core, like to be honest, the event names, no, it's not a must, but it just depends like how it's easier for you to read those event names. Like if we speak about custom ones. For the event names, we also have recommended events for different verticals, and we always suggest that you look through this list first. And if the name of the event is actually coming in, like you see the event that you would like to pass in this recommended events list, then we highly recommend that you use this one, because it would be easier for you to leverage some future machine learning capabilities or like artificial intelligence ones, because they will rely on a common naming convention. If not, of course, yeah, it's always fine to use custom names too. Yeah. All right. So there are some more questions, but I believe that the best course of action for us would be to follow up later, and we highly recommend that you reach out to your Google POCs, and we will make sure that all questions are answered. Thank you very much for your time, and best of luck. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.